Joining us now to talk more on this is Mr. Christian Leuprecht, professor at Royal Military College and Queen's University and senior fellow at the Macdonald Laurier Institute. Sir, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Hello, thank you.
So let's start with a quick overview of the role that Afghan interpreters and other staff played during Canada's mission in Afghanistan and why they and their families are now considered to be at risk.
Yeah, so there's, of course, the instrumental piece of making sure that you can communicate, but there's also a cultural sensitivity piece so that they're able to bring to bear advice on how best to interact with local populations and local knowledge that otherwise would be lacking and would undermine mission success. The question is, under what circumstances people sign up for that particular mission? Was it simply for the payment that they received, or was there a broader expectation that they might, as a result of their assistance to Canadian Armed Forces, one day have the opportunity to come to Canada?
Now, meanwhile, veterans and former interpreters have criticized the resettlement process. What are some of their suggested improvements to this process?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we could have anticipated this at the time we went to Afghanistan. I mean, we knew that we were using interpreters and we knew that we're going to pull out one day and that the situation was likely going to get very dangerous again. And so we should have anticipated that we owed a debt to these individuals. And I think what we missed here is, on the one hand, clarifying the conditions under which they were working with us in the first place. And on the other hand, making sure that their expectations match what Canada is able to provide. And so I think this is a strategic failure on the part of both former and current governments not having had sufficient foresight. And we need to learn from this for future missions to make sure that this debacle doesn't happen again.
Now, I really want to dig deeper into the background of this conflict here. So this conflict in Afghanistan has been called Canada's longest war. So what was the original objective of this mission? And did Canada and coalition partners actually accomplish it?
Yeah, I think we lose track of that. The objective was to make sure that Afghanistan would not become a safe haven for terrorists to launch international attacks, in particular on the West. And that mission was accomplished within arguably a year of coalition forces showing up in Afghanistan. But then we got what's known as mission creep. We're starting to do all sorts of other things, starting to fight the Taliban, even though the Taliban did not pose a terrorist risk to internationally. We started to engage in also civil society and state building sort of exercises. We're using the military, even though it was probably not the most effective instrument to achieve some of these ends. And so now we're surprised when we're getting the outcome that was entirely predictable 18 years ago. And maybe we should have had more foresight and pulled down the mission once we had a sense that the original aim of the mission had been accomplished.
So we're seeing, as you're saying, coalition forces are withdrawing from Afghanistan. The Taliban is making significant gains on the ground. You're saying this is unpredictable. Why is that, Mr. Leuprecht? Or this is predictable, rather?
Yeah, because if you understand your history, and I think if in the West we had a bit more humility about our ability to bring change and to understand the conflicts that have beset societies in Afghanistan for centuries, then I think we would have had a more realistic outlook on what the prospects actually are and what an appropriate role for Canada might be. And that the Taliban would always consider us invaders, occupiers, and that the Taliban would always have greater resilience and greater endurance than Western forces. And of course, that's what the Taliban banked on. And the Taliban that calculation seems to be working out for the Taliban and not for the West.
All right, so just about a minute left, but what does the future of Afghanistan look like after Western forces withdraw from the country?
So I do think there's a lot of change that Canada and coalition forces have affected. And so it is not going to go back to the status quo ante. I think Afghan society will push back hard against sort of some of the extremely conservative efforts by the Taliban. And so I do think we see a considerable effort at modernization. But I think this will be a struggle, but a struggle that ultimately the Afghan peoples will need to work out for themselves rather than having Western countries work it out for them.
All right, Mr. Leuprecht, always great having you on Forum Daily. Thank you again for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.